Good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to the Thursday edition of Vogan's European Outlook for the 6th of June. Before I continue with the video, like, share, and subscribe. You know the drill. I do greatly appreciate everybody's support. And yeah, certainly an interesting start to meteorological summer. It depends on what way you look at things, but disappointing for some, especially if you're a heat lover. But probably if you don't like heat, this has been a welcome start to the summer so far. And this is the 2 meter temperature anomalies globally. We will look at that in a good bit more detail in the upcoming 95th edition of the Global Weather Report. That will be the live edition this upcoming Sunday. So it's back this weekend again. Hope you can be available to tune in for that if you're available. But this is the first 6 days of June, according to the CDAS 0.5 data. Below average. Looks as if we're going to continue to see this below average theme, by the way, as we move towards at least the middle portions of the month. And there is reason to believe that this nagging cool theme may linger even beyond. But notice the contrast over Europe. So below average across the vast majority of the UK and Ireland here, warmer than average across most of Iberia with the exceptions of the east coast. France is below average, Low Countries is below average, Germany into the Alpine region, much of Italy is below average, but it is very, very warm to start both summer and June down across Greece, Turkey, up through Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, Ukraine, into the Baltic region. And then as you get into the areas that were coldest in May, is seeing the warmest conditions for the first week of June. So what a contrast, what a flip around in a sense for Western Russia and Scandinavia. Now, May was a warm month up in Scandinavia, but remember what has gone in months gone by where we had persistent cold up across northern portions of Europe here. But it's going to be interesting to see how this profile of temperature anomaly evolves as we move through the course of June. Now, like I said, the cause of this chilly theme so far is a lot of blocking. We've got a wave 7 pattern, hemispherically speaking, where you've got a lot of blocking. So you slow down the west to east progress in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So troughs and ridges don't really move very much, and therefore you tend to get quite a build-up of extremes, and that's exactly what we're seeing over Europe at the moment. Unusually cool conditions across the UK and Ireland, wet conditions across parts of France, and then as you move into southern, southeast, and eastern Europe, we're talking about near record or record breaking hot conditions. But it's this reason here, the negative NAO is at the weakest levels since beginning of April here. This is the second major dip in the NAO since the turn of the year, and this is the reason why we're seeing that area of high pressure over the North Atlantic moved in, then it moved back out again. As it moved back out, it's kind of stuck in place, and it's allowing a trough to descend over the UK and Ireland. And like I said, with this wave 7 pattern and a buildup of pressure within the Arctic region, that really slows down the movement of weather around the hemisphere. Hence why we're kind of stuck in this chilly north to northwesterly airflow while we've got exceptional warmth further east over Europe, northern Europe as well here. There's not an awful lot of eastward progress, so this pattern essentially isn't going to kick out, really anytime soon, I don't think, anyway. And this is where it's going to get interesting as we go through the period. Do we see a budget in the pattern now? The MJO is actually in phases 7 and 8, and that is favourable for blocking. And if you notice here, this is the ensemble mean forecast here. This is a tweet, by the way, that was issued it's a tweet that was issued by myself yesterday, but this graphic was actually produced a couple of weeks ago, showing that the multi-model members were indicating that the month of June would actually be primarily slightly negative in terms of the North Atlantic Oscillation. The Arctic Oscillation as well is negative here. So you notice here that we are continuing to dip towards -2 sigma below the neutral. Then it kind of recovers, but it may have a hard time getting back to neutral. Now, if you notice, this is the Arctic oscillation. It too is taking a tanking, and it's actually yet to reach its most negative before it tries to recover. And then you notice it's kind of dropping back off once again. It's going back towards negative according to the GFS ensemble. So what does that actually mean then? If we happen to look at the ECNWF weeklies, this is the temperature anomaly for the next 30 days, which takes us out to Friday the 5th of July. And you actually notice here that we've got below average conditions seen by the ECM weeklies for the UK and for Ireland, for France, the Low Countries, Germany, central areas of Europe below average, slightly warmer than average, especially the further south and southwest you go over Iberia, but also to the east of Germany, Poland, southeastwards and northeastwards, you've got generally warmer than average conditions. In terms of precipitation, it looks as if we're going to maintain this dry theme overall. This is the next 30-day precipitation anomaly of the same model. You can see here that it's slightly wetter than average across the north, but firmly below average precipitation seen by the model for the rest of the UK, really from the southern highlands southwards. Ireland and Northern Ireland as well, drier than average. Northern France, drier than average. And really across that central swathe of Europe here, through the Low Countries, Germany, into northern Poland, it's drier than average. Then you've got a slice of weather conditions across much of Iberia, across southern and central France, into the Alpine region as well, North Italy, etc., etc. And then we've got a lot of dry conditions further south over the Balkan region, Greece, Turkey, up the eastern side of Europe as well here. That would indicate to me that we've got obviously the trough over the west and the ridge over the east, southeast of the continent here. If we look at the upper heights for the same time period here, so this is, bear in mind, this is the 30-day average, but you notice here that we've got a weak negative here, extended from the UK essentially into Central Europe here. So this is maintaining this blocky theme. Let's have a look and see what the Northern Hemispheric view for the same period is. You can see here that we've got a lot of blocking over the top, over the North Atlantic and over Greenland here, and a trough both over the eastern United States and Western Europe here. So the ECM weeklies is indicating that this negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation pattern will maintain itself through the remainder of June here, which would coincide almost beautifully with the forecast I've got, average to slightly below average in both temperature and rainfall for the UK and Ireland here. So it's certainly going to be very interesting to see what happens. What's actually quite interesting is the ECMWF weeklies actually has it weekly positive, but yet, the weeklies is indicating here that we maintain this negative AO-NAO pattern here. But like I say, the vast majority of the members here, the models indicate that we've got a weekly negative NAO during the month of June. Then the majority of the models, notice, go positive as we go through July, August, and beyond that. So, it will be interesting to see how this all evolves over the next wee while or so here, in terms of the current pattern. But certainly the slowdown in nature of the pattern is very evident. By the way, this was a tweet here that I'd kind of retweeted last night here. This is a part of Iceland where we had literally whiteout conditions, bitterly cold conditions, and essentially our northerly winds are crossing over Iceland, out of Greenland, out of the Arctic, over Iceland, and this is the conditions that we are seeing in parts of Iceland. So, if you think it's bad here, get yourself 1,000 miles to the north of the UK up into Iceland, and it's even more extreme than what we're seeing. But nonetheless, this is an interesting tweet here by Ian Cameron, and this was the scene this morning on parts of the Scottish mountains here, fresh snow cover, and he goes on to actually say that fresh snow has fallen on the high peaks of Scotland for 3 consecutive days now. This is very unusual, having only happened a handful of times in the last 30 years. The record for fresh snowfall in June is 9 days total, which occurred both in 1977 and 2012. Now, as I've already said, and I've tweeted this out myself, that June snow in the mountains of Scotland happens every 3 to 5 years, but also temperatures below freezing. The dashboard as I drove up the A9 actually did hit zero last night, and I'm pretty sure there was slight grass frost in a couple of spots. I do know that Lee at Highland Weather had tweeted that there was quite a lot of widespread below freezing temperatures in and around Aviemore, Braemar, Cockbridge, Tom and Towel, the Cairn Shield Lodge. As you go up towards the Car Bridge area, that is quite often one of the most prone spots for summertime frosts. But there was a couple of unofficial gauges. It was the Highland Weather Network representing temperatures -1, -2, even -3 just to the north of Carbridge. Like I say, as I entered the area really from about Kincraig to about the Slough Summit, the dashboard did register 1, 2, and it did drop off to about 0 Celsius. Now, going back, I'm sure it was June 2021, my gauge hit -2 on the 22nd of June, and an official reading of -2.4 was recorded at Altnahara. Go back to 1998, and Braemar hit -5 in the month of June. So it's not overly unusual to see below freezing temperatures in the month of June, but nonetheless, it only happens every so often. But yeah, it certainly is an interesting spell of chilly conditions. There's no getting away from that. Let's have a look and see what the GFS overview precipitation, cloud temperature, and pressure is indicating here. In fact, I actually want to show you something first, because I think there's quite a distinct lack of rainfall, especially across the areas that have seen the most rainfall in recent months, and that being the southern UK. As we go through the next 10 days, there is not that much rain to speak about across the far south of the UK here. And let's have a look and see what it's indicating. So this is the total rainfall as up until the 15th of June. And you can see here that we do have a few areas. We've got that swathe, uh, like I showed you in the ECMWF precipitation anomaly here through Iberia, across central and southern France, through the Alpine region and into the Balkan region. You've got that kind of slice of wet conditions here. Essentially, what you've got is you've got cooler air trophiness over this region. You've got heat and a hot, humid, high pressure dominated pattern across southern and eastern portions of Europe. Then you get a lot of fight in between, and that's where you tend to get your biggest rainfall totals in the battle between the air masses, so to speak. But you can see here that we've got not a huge amount of rain to speak about over the next week to 10 days across the majority of the UK. We've got a few areas that pick up a little bit more, but overall, it's not a big deal, so to speak. Let's have a look and see. We'll just play through this loop here and see what's showing up here. So at the moment, we've got the high over the North Atlantic extending north. We've got the trough, low pressure at the surface. We've got an upper level trough pretty much dominating this general region here between Iceland, Scandinavia, down into the UK. Further south, you've got higher pressure, especially across the southeast. As we play through the next few days here, we're going to continue to see, you know, those colder convective bands rattling around that area of low pressure, continuing to drive blustery showers in from a west to northwesterly direction. That is going to be the theme as we progress in towards the weekend. And then we've actually got an area of low pressure at the surface that kind of makes a very close approach in the northern UK. That's going to enhance the showers and possibly the chilly theme as well as we increase the winds near the centre of that low. And you can see that we are going to continue to maintain this showery theme. Now, as those showers continue to progress south and southeast, you tend to fade away and they kind of lose their punch, so to speak. So I would expect to see the most shower activity across the north, as we've seen all week. Further south, a little bit less in the way of shower activity here, but there is features that are moving in from the northwest around those areas of low, or that area of low pressure is only one real low. But as those features move in, it's going to enhance the showers and potentially bring a longer spell of heavy persistent rain and possibly some further mountain snow over the tops as well. But you notice as we move into early Saturday, continue to have this high over the North Atlantic, low to the north or northeast of the UK, and that run of north to northwesterly winds will continue. And as we continue to play in through the course of the weekend, there's that area of low pressure now moving into Scandinavia, but we continue to see the northerly winds coming down, folks. So any warmth across the south is not coming northwards. In fact, it's getting forced east, because Spain and Portugal is going to start turning colder as cooler air continues to push south into France, into Iberia, and a lot of the heat will then get transferred east over the Mediterranean and into the eastern and southeastern half of the continent. So even by the time we reach 12 UTC on Sunday, we're still in the northerly wind, and as we continue to play through, we've got more systems running that northerly wind. This, folks, would certainly be a very cold pattern if it had been December, January, or February. But it's sod's law. You get the most negative NAO in months, and you've got a pattern that you would, if you're a winter weather lover like myself, you would kill for this pattern during the course of the winter season. Isn't it sod's law that we get a winter pattern to die for during the first week to 10 days or 2 weeks of summer? It's just the way the weather goes, I'm afraid. So continue to play through. This is off the 850 millibar profile. You notice here the heat now starting to transfer eastwards through the Mediterranean and up the eastern side of the continent. As we continue to see that high not going anywhere, the pattern is not going to change, and that's the problem when you've got the negative NAO, and more importantly, the negative Arctic oscillation. When you've got that blocking across the top, that slows down the west to east progress of weather systems around the entire hemisphere. So we're going to continue to see this northerly flow, this cold flow, and in the last few days, high pressure that has been hinting at moving into the UK, it doesn't look as if it's going to do that. And in fact, it's just going to continue to see this nagging chilly theme as we'll play right the way through to the 20th of the month. Yeah, we're flirting with something a bit warmer now over the Atlantic. Bear in mind how far this is out. This is 10 days away, essentially, or even 15 days. This is more than likely to change. So therefore, that this idea here of negative NAO, negative Arctic oscillation, colder than average over the next 30 days, that is actually believable. And this certainly does look as if it could be a colder than average month as well as drier than average. The good take home would be that we don't have excessive heat, and we also don't have an awful lot of rain to speak about as well, which is good news for many parts of the UK, with probably the exceptions of the northwest. But up here, we've had a little bit more shower activity. We've been closest to the exposure of that northwesterly flow. So we're getting a little bit of moisture up here. Areas that don't need it, you're getting a little bit of a break. So that is certainly welcome news. So obviously, coming up this weekend, tropical outlook on Saturday and the live stream this upcoming Sunday as well. So plenty of reason to stick around and hit that subscribe button. Like the videos as well. Let myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content. And I'll see you again tomorrow, hopefully with more. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Bye for now.